adding those numbers. Numbers
Right.
just got make my hair go.
Yeah.
That go.
But it looks good on you.
Really?
Yeah, what's it got?
Okay. Well,
Process natin na sa Diligan. How did that feel for you?
yeah, it's kind of like affirmation, you know. You go through the process of it.
Right.
Because, so proud, you know. Just have to pull out everything out of what
Yeah.
idea will come out and just go through it. Think positively lang eh.
Yeah,
Go
positive. Positive building on
Yeah.
each other. We asked one of our participants in our workshops to do that with one of us in the end. And say that that's what a good atmosphere of reaction towards disaster in the first few seconds feels like. There's no clear leader. There's no clear follower. You're fully awake, you're fully alert, you're fully ready to act. And we follow each other to keep each other safe. And that's what it feels like. Because most people, especially with our political realities, only know the leadership paradigm of strong leader, weak follower. Strong leader knows everything, but you don't always have that strong leader. And improv teaches you to do that on your own for a while. It's also interesting when we would actually do this with some of our specifically we did this in Tanawan Leyte about 5 months after Haiyan struck. And we had the most active, the most bibo, very much alive participant. When asked to perform, the participant said, "Oh my gosh, I would rather that the typhoon be back than you have me perform in front of an audience." For us, it was a way to teach attitudes without re-traumatizing people, without making them go through a simulation where they might think, "Oh, there's a disaster striking again," etc. No, it's as current, it's as alive, and it's as real for them because after all, for many people, they fear public speaking and performance more than they fear death. This was in Tanawan where we did exactly that exercise. Remember when he was a school teacher in Tanawan in Leyte. We did another exercise again with one of the vulnerable populations where it was a simple walk and when you get to the edge, you will feel hands. Walk with your eyes closed and you will feel hands. It's not a trust fall. Nobody falls like that or anything. I hate trust falls. They're very dangerous. But simply walk towards the edge and get the feeling of connectedness with them. Our work, fortunately, has had some influence since we ran this. This was a workshop that we ran for humanitarian workers, about 60 of them, in Oxford in the UK. So we had people from the Red Cross, the Red Climate Center, who are very strong advocates on games for environment education. And they asked us to put on a workshop for them there in Oxford. This was in 2017 or 2016, this one. And this was one of the pilots that we did. This was to one of the Aita communities outside Zambales, and you will see some of the games in action. A very short video.
Here comes the sun, I say it's alright. Darling, it's been a long time. It feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun.
So, in the end, what it's all about was that it started really with the question of what am I good at and how can I use it to help serve our community better. I embrace the fact that I'm an actor, I'm an educator. I embrace the good that improvisation has done to me, the good kind of improvisation. And with the proper guidance and proper collaboration, especially with Dr. Mary Tiskevich, we were able to come up with a program. In this iteration, it was 3 R's that can complement, that can vary the way that we form attitudes and mindsets when responding in the first few minutes of when a disaster strikes. We'll answer your questions later after Dr. Mel. You can reach me here, thirdworldimprov@gmail.com. Absolutely dedicated to improvisation, but also rooted in the culture. We're embracing the term third world improv. And just a story behind that. The biggest and best improvisation school in the world is a school called Second City in Chicago. We've performed there, and we thought it would be a nice joke and a stab at them up. You're the second city, we're the third world. So, with that, I'd like to thank you for your time.
We will have the question and answer after our next speaker. So our next speaker, may I introduce to you the next speaker. He is a professor of community development at the College of Social Work and Community Development, University of the Philippines in Diliman. He finished BS Community Development in 1979 as cum laude, and in 2000 he completed his PhD in urban and regional planning. Dr. Luna specializes in community-based disaster risk reduction and management. He has published 50 journal papers, book chapters, and books, 21 of which are international publications. As a researcher, he received prestigious academic awards from his university, such as the UP International Publication Award, then the UP Centennial Professorial Awardee, and one Professional Chair Award for Outstanding Research and Public Service for 2016 to 2018. Dr. Luna has been a researcher and speaker in national and in international conferences in Asia, Europe, America, and Africa. He is a founding member of the International Association for Humanitarian Studies based in the Netherlands, a member of the Board of Regents of the Bach Graduate University based in Washington State, USA, and a co-editor of international journal Disaster Prevention and Management, which is listed in the Thomson Reuters and Scopus. He was engaged as consultant researcher by the Oxford Policy Management in the UK, Making All Voices Count in UK, Asian Center for Disaster Preparedness in Bangkok, International Development Studies in the UK, Oxfam Great Britain, International Recovery Platform in Kobe, Japan, and the UNESCO in Indonesia. He currently sits in the Board of Trustees of the Center for Disaster Preparedness and Operations Compassion. He is one of the conveners of the DRRNet Philippines. Let us all welcome Dr. Emmanuel Luna.
Thank you very much. When Gabe and I were together in the van going here, and we were asking each other who would be doing the presentation first. And then he said, I'll be the one. He volunteered. Because it's 1 o'clock and it's a very dangerous time. And I said, I would be benefiting a lot if he would be number 1. And true enough, I hope we're all alive. You know, in disaster reduction and management, it is said that the arts is the soul of society and as well as in disaster management. The engineering and the sciences and the technology, they're the provider of the things that we need. And the social sciences, where I belong, is the conscience. It's the conscience of society as well as in the RRM. But I'm not only conscience. As you can see later in my presentation, it's going to be very, very cognitive, but there are also a lot of values in it. Because I myself is a product of, I'm a graduate of PETA, Philippine Educational Theater Association, Batch 87 BTAB, Basic Integrated Theater Arts. And I love what you're doing, my goodness. I remember those trainings that we had. And I do script writing and do directing also of short plays. And I just love arts. But my feet brought me to community development and urban and regional planning. And now into disaster reduction and management. So this is going to be very different from what Gabe did. It's going to be a more nerdy because the artistic one, okay? And it's going to be more on the cognitive side. But I said, I'm going to give you everything so that even if I not complete the 62 slides, then you will have it in your, as your material. Okay? I know the stage of really sharing what I have. I'll be retiring in 3 years' time. And I said, I will not be using all these slides in the next after 3 years. I'm 62, I will be 62 already in December. So I'm now in the process of sharing. I have some of my students here with me, some are my friends, and some of you might be familiar with what I'll be sharing. Okay? I'll start with the basic assumptions about this CBDRM. And then some innovations from the ground, which is really about community-based at the community level, and then influencing national programs integrating DRR and CBDRM in the K-12 curriculum as an innovation, and then challenges for greater innovations. Okay, so let's start with the assumption one. It has something to do with the definition of what CBDRM is. Okay, and this is actually this definition by the law in Republic Act 101/21 was actually based on the definition of the United Nations International Strategy for Disaster Reduction. But that definition was also coined during international conferences in which Filipino participants were very, very hard in advocating participation and community-based in DRR. In fact, during the Yogo framework, when Yogo framework was established, was put up in Kobe in 2005. It was a Filipina, Senayla Delica, who actually who gave the closing remarks in the closing program, and she advocated for CBDRM. Why? Because the Philippines is one of the countries where participation is very much valued. Okay? And then assumption two is that there's a framework, a general framework from which CBDRM is anchored on, and this includes sustainable human development. I'm not going to the details of this, but you can Google all these things in the internet. You will know what its framework means. Protection of human development goals, mainstreaming DRR into development, and at the same time, risk reduction and management. So these are the broader framework from which CBDRM is anchored on. Baka makatulog sila kasi magpapalaro na rin ko dito. Okay. Anyway, just kidding. I said, this is, as I've said, very, very cognitive, unlike the previous session where you had to have some games. Now, another assumption, again, I'm saying these are assumptions because these are innovations and realizations from the past, okay? So it's good for us to more or less recapture what we have now at present. So what are the goals of CBDRM? For me, it is meant to transform passivity and powerlessness into action and resilience. So from just, you know, an impression like this to an empowered stance, okay? So we need to be empowered, and this means the following: reduction of our vulnerabilities. Next is ensuring our public safety and reduction of impacts on the lives, properties, resources, and environment due to hazards. And then empowerment of individuals in the community institutions. And so whatever institutions you belong to, we hope that you will be empowered individually and as a collective body. And the last one, which is for me is very important, and that is the transformation of structures and relationships that generate inequity and underdevelopment. There are so many structures in the community, in our society, that oppresses people and that makes the person vulnerable and at risk, especially in times of disaster. That could be because of gender oppression, that could be because of social discrimination, or maybe because of economic deprivation and things like that. So there are so many social factors that results to vulnerability of people in communities. Also, assumption 4 is about community engagement. This means that, when we do BDRM, CBDRM, we do some volunteer work in collective action in all the pillars of disaster risk reduction and management, from prevention and mitigation, disaster preparedness, disaster response, and disaster recovery. I'm presenting a more comprehensive picture because these are just assumptions already. Now, as I've said, you can Google each term and the internet will give you a lot of materials about all these terms. The next is assumption of 5 is CBDRM adopts an integrated community development framework. So, community development framework, I'm in the field of community development, and if you're doing CBDRM, then I assume that this is done in the context of community development. And that means that there is, it has community education that builds people's capacities. That's community education in terms of value formation. I'll not go into the details of this. Skills development for collective action, as well as conscientization. By the way, you can Google my name, and there's an article published by the British organization, and this article is found there. Okay, that's why I'm just presenting to you resources which you can look at. Okay, so it also means community organizing for people's empowerment, and that includes now governance as well. And that means area-based organizing, issue-based and sectoral organizing, and then alliance and coalition building. So the third aspect of the framework is about community resources and risk management, which is meant to ensure people's welfare and well-being. It's not enough to be competent. It's not enough to be participative. It's not enough to be engaged. There must be an improvement in the lives of people in terms of welfare and well-being. Even if you are active and you are educated, if nothing is happening in your life, then what you have doesn't bring you to what is desirable. Okay? And then, so if we bring this all together, the city framework would then include community resources and risk management, means having social enterprise development, community economic development, and community environment. Okay? And the three will now have this one. Community development is for empowerment and transformation. That means community education, community organizing, governance, and community resources and disaster risk management. So this is the framework from where CBDRM is anchored on. And then assumption 6 is initiating CBDRM. When does CBDRM takes place? Again, these are also based on previous experiences and researchers. One, as a response to a disaster event. When there's a disaster, then you come in using CBDRM as your tool. Second is, CBDRM is integrated or mainstream in an existing development program. Nowadays, several programs, if not all, are now very much interested in bringing in CBDRM into the program. I remember way back in the 1990s, I was already into this DRR, disaster management at that time. But I feel like it was a small voice in the wilderness, okay? Nobody listens to things like that. However, things changed when, in 2005, the Yoko framework was put up, okay? And then in Metro Manila, the Typhoon Undoy was the one that really gave greater awareness about disaster. And now, we've been saying DRR and climate change are now the flavor of the month, if not flavor of the decade. Then also CBDRM has development program in vulnerable communities. Now, there are now programs, even if there is no disaster, they're now launching CBDRM as a development program, especially if the areas are vulnerable. So you can do that if you want, for example, in your proposal. You don't have to wait for disaster in order for you to initiate a CBDRM. once you see that there are areas, communities that are vulnerable, then it's time to use CBDRM as your approach in that development project. And then, of course, we have people-initiated CBDRM, meaning nobody is coming as a catalyst, but the people themselves do it. Of course, with assumption 7, so that's the end, because 7 is the complete number. Community engagement in time. This means that the x-axis is the time, and the y-axis is the level of engagement. As you can see, as the time progresses, then the community involvement of the people as a partner, as an initiator, and as an influencer increases in time. Okay? At the same time, the involvement of the outsider, whoever you are, you're an academic, you're from NGO, from the church, from the LGU, then our engagement as an outsider in the community should be decreasing. So by the time here, we have smaller engagement compared to the people's engagement. So given this basic assumption, what is the case from the ground? I'm using the Operation Compassion Philippines because this is the NGO where I'm involved with. I sit there as a board of trustee, that's the same as the consultant in CD, and I've seen how it worked from Infantine, Nakar in 2004, when there was this typhoon Winnie that caused the flash flood, and then we moved to Leyte, in Albay, during the 2006 Riming flash flood, and then from there we also went to Mindanao, and then in 2013 in Leyte. We moved to Leyte 2 days. Yolanda came Saturday, Friday, by Sunday we were already in Tacloban via Cebu, and then we were able to reach Tacloban, not through airplane. So from that time on 2013, and now 2018, we're still in that area, okay? So this is a local NGO started in 2004, and now we're operating in Mayorga, Dulag, Tacloban North resettlement area. So this is, the initial community was in Mayorga. These are just description of Mayorga. Some of the damages, okay? You just imagine that if you've been to this city, to this municipality, right after you land, that everything you'll see was really a devastation. Okay, and then what the NGO did was to assist first in disaster response, because it was emergency. There was no food, there was no water, there's not even a place to sleep. So we're sleeping like a sardine in one bed. There were about 4 or 5 people sleeping there because there was no much space. So we did relief distribution, and then we built transitional shelter, psychosocial, medical, school repairs. We distributed school supplies, etc., etc. The point is, we did emergency. And during emergency, you can ask, why CBDRM is there? Well, actually, when everybody feels like victimized, it's very difficult to mobilize them. It's very difficult to cause them to work with you. But we were able to mobilize some people in terms of identifying people who would be recipient of resources, things like that. But the work initially was with relief operations. But it doesn't end with just relief operations. If you're going to do CBDRM, then it has to go beyond relief, but move into recovery. So these are some of the transitional housing that was done. It's done by cluster, and the making of the lumber from coconut trees was done by the people themselves, and then including the procurement of materials. Then they did the construction and the designing. The NGO just provided the funds, but in terms of labor, in terms of designing, it was the people themselves doing it. And then in terms of shelter design, so this is the design of temporary shelter. And then we moved to Tacloban 2004, a year after. And then these are some of the activities almost similar to Mayorga. And then, I know this is not the way to do that in arts. I'm trying to catch up because of there are so many slides. This is just the section 2, okay? So we did all this, all this DRR training, advocacy training for the communities. When we are dealing with the community, it's very important that we develop their capabilities, okay? Or else we will be doing things by ourselves instead of having partners. And then, so this in Tacloban, they have this farm management. Right after the disaster, there was really food. There was a problem with food insecurity. So what they did was to come up with egg raising, broil raising, so that they'll be producing food that can easily be used. Okay. So they also facilitate in discussion about issues and concern. So they have urban gardening, and then they have opportunities for rice loan, meaning people can now have rice through this cycle. Instead of getting money as loan, they borrow rice. This is what we call rice bank, and Thailand is very good in rice banking. And then you have established direct communication and trust to the LGU officers, so that's LGU officials, so that more than some of the resources of the municipality can be channeled to the community. And these are just pictures of what they did. And then they also did community organizing and governance, okay? And then these are some of the meetings, planning, and also doing advocacy. So these are just pictures of some of the activities. This is the vice mayor of the Tacloban City, and we're able to access some of the resources of the LGU through him. So there was this one is about participation in local governance. Community leaders were able to participate in decision-making body at the city level, especially in formulation of plans, recovery plans. So the community people, therefore, are not just concerned about their locality, but also at the higher level, at the city level. Here, you have here the CSO and LGU consultation workshop. And then also, as I've said, you need to have community resources management, and the just a summary of what we did. Oh, sorry, it's you cannot read it. Well, we have initial relief, then rehabilitation. Then we have, actually change the color of this paper. We have negotiation with NGOs for resource mobilization, and then voluntary resettlement by the families. We did not force families to be relocated. They volunteered, okay? They volunteered. We just said, oh, we have resettlement program, who's willing, and then they raised their hands. Sorry. And then you have organizational capacity building, then you have engagement in planning and implementation. And it carries an empowering perspective. So this is the experiences, these are the experiences of OC. And immediately, there were immediate community responses to reduce further risk and losses. In CBDRM, what we are interested in is not just managing the disaster, but reducing the risk even during the time of emergency. Okay, so we have noticed that there's a natural survival or instinct to assist people in times of emergency through rescue. Okay, engagement in relief operations and early recovery activities, they're very much involved, even if they were, shall we say, victimized, okay? But we would rather call them as people affected by disasters rather than calling them victims. Also, they accommodate families in shelter during disaster events. Okay, the bayanihan spirit, they share their houses. Those who still have houses, and then even municipalities, some municipalities, they accepted migrants from Leyte. And then you have salvaging of food items from the flood, collecting, purchasing of sharing of food. Instead of buying individually, they would purchase collectively. And then hosting affected families by relatives, and then steering encouragement through Christmas messages. They know that they rather happen in November than you have December. So it's almost around, in how many days? We'll be celebrating the 5th anniversary of Lilandia. That's October 15. We celebrated the earthquake in Bohol. So just imagine, we're supposed to be very happy because it's Christmas season, but